Bulls Nation, welcome to another Chicago Bulls Weekly for the Chicago Bulls. And this episode of Chicago Bulls Weekly is going to be an extremely interesting one. And ultimately, this previous week that the Chicago Bulls have just faced could potentially change the game for how they play for many years to come. So without further ado, let's talk about the Chicago Bulls and let's talk about Chicago Bulls Weekly in this video. Let's do it. What's up, everybody? It's the Aidan Sports Show and welcome back to another video. Today we've got a Chicago Bulls weekly episode, and this episode is game changing. This episode is career defining for the Chicago Bulls, because at the end of the day, this is going to be a very memorable week for the Chicago Bulls. This episode of Chicago Bulls Weekly will be a very memorable one, because today we're going to be talking about some of the most game-changing trades, some of the most game-changing changes that the Chicago Bulls have done in quite some time, and it's going to be talked about in this episode. But before we get started, please like and subscribe to the Aidan Sports Show YouTube channel, turn notifications on, and let me know in the comments below your thoughts about how the Chicago Bulls enjoyed, or if you're looking at the results, how disappointed you are with the Chicago Bulls this previous week. And we will also be talking about the weeks to come and the future games to look forward to in this upcoming week. So with that being said, let's discuss first things first, the results. Let's talk about the results for the Chicago Bulls, because there were definitely some very disappointing results, if I do say so myself. The first one that we have to discuss is the Utah Jazz. We were simply outmatched with the Utah Jazz. This was before all of the trades that did happen. We had Wendell, we had Otto Porter, and we had Daniel Gafford, Luke Cornett. We had all of those players still on the team. And the Chicago Bulls lost 120-95, completely and utterly outmatched in every single fashion in that game. And we struggled for the majority, and we got bested by a better team, and I think the result is definitely what we deserved as well. There's not too much you could do against one of the best teams, if not the best team on current form in the NBA. You're going to end up losing that game if you're a Chicago Bulls that was not doing terrifically well up to that point, and that's exactly what happened. But then we turn to the Cleveland Cavaliers, a game where I believe the Chicago Bulls could have bounced back with leaps and tons of momentum. However, the Chicago Bulls with very, very, very poor offense, and the Cleveland Cavaliers very good and surprisingly good defense. The Chicago Bulls was hesitant to attack the paint, and we ended up losing this game in very similar fashion, 103-94 against the Cleveland Cavaliers. A very disappointing game. The first game the Chicago Bulls lost to a record under 500 was against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they have bragging rights over the Chicago Bulls until our next game. Let's see if that has any sort of change when we verse them again. And in our last game, in this game, we had our trades. We had Nikola Vucevic in the team. We had Troy Brown Jr. We had Al-Farouq Aminu. We had Javonte Green. The only player we didn't have in that game was Daniel Theis. And the new-look Chicago Bulls, with less than 24 hours to gel together, versed a very good and very well-organized San Antonio Spurs team. And of course, in Spurs fashion, they outpassed us, they outworked us, and we ended up losing that game 120-104. Now, the results based on this, we were 0-3 in this week for the Chicago Bulls. This previous week for the Chicago Bulls, we were 0-3 with very, very disappointing losses in all three of them. So in that retrospect, on the results based of things, which I think most people at the moment, we're looking for patience considering a lot of these trades, but it is a very bad week in terms of results. However, this week could ultimately be changing the Chicago Bulls' future for a long time. Because after that Cavs game, basically one day after the Cavs game, we made some changes to the Chicago Bulls that will probably push us to the playoffs. And not only that, will push us into future years competing in the East. We traded for Nikola Vucevic. For this trade, we gave up Wendell Carter, Otto Porter, and 2 first-round picks that are swap deals. We traded Daniel Gafford and Chandler Hutchinson to the Washington Wizards for Troy Brown Jr. and Mo Wagner. We traded Mo Wagner and Luke Cornett to the Boston Celtics for Daniel Theis and Javonte Green and some cash. So I don't know what the Celtics were thinking in that deal, to be honest, but in the end, the Chicago Bulls pulled off some miraculous trades in that trade deadline. And ultimately, we are one of, if not the main winner in the trade deadline in the entire NBA. The Heat did very well. There are a bunch of teams that did phenomenal work. Even the Magic, to an extent, with their rebuilding now, they've done a tremendous job. But we did something that I didn't believe we would be doing for a while. And we also traded for Al-Farouq Aminu, before I forget. I'm not sure if I mentioned him or not. But we did something that I didn't think we were going to do for quite some time. We decided that the future is now. We decided we're going to go and try and compete now. We're not a championship team. I'm not going to go to that extent. We are a playoff team now. That's what I truly believe. I believe these trades will elevate us to the playoffs. If not this season, then definitely next season. I think we have some quality in that backcourt and front court now to push us to the next level. And that is something I didn't think the Chicago Bulls was going to do. I always thought this Bulls team was an evaluation. We're going to evaluate, assess our options, and make a decision at the end of the season. With 40 games evaluated for the Chicago Bulls, they press the button now of what they wanted to do. They clearly see that this team can be much better than what it was. And with those trades that they have made, we've made the Chicago Bulls a significantly better team. However, with 24 hours basically, as a Chicago Bull, they were thrown into the fire against the San Antonio Spurs. And hopefully this game against the Golden State Warriors that we have coming up next will be a game where we could see a little bit more team chemistry with everybody involved in this team. That's going to be a great sight. We've got some training and practices under our belt now with some of these new players, and let's see what we can do. It's going to take some time to adjust, and patience is required when you have so many dramatic changes, but these changes in the future will be extremely beneficial. We've got some experience in this team. We still have some young players, a good mix and match. We are definitely a team that I think could definitely fit in to 4th seed to 6th seed in the East. Maybe not this season, but definitely when there's a fresh start and everybody has a 0-0 record next season, we could push for that 4th to 6th seed, and I think we could do it pretty well. But enough about the new players. We've talked about them. I've made videos about all of them except for Daniel Tice and Javonte Green. Unfortunately, it was 6 in the morning. I could not make that video. But I really think Daniel Tice will be a tremendous asset defensively to the Chicago Bulls. And we've already seen Javonte Green's introduction into the NBA with 4 rebounds and a very good block on DeMar DeRozan. So I think these two are going to be just fine. I think Daniel Tice will be an anchor defensively on the bench. And I think that Javonte Green will earn his minutes here and there. And I think he'll do a good job when he plays. Let's talk about the awards. The awards that we give to the Chicago Bulls. Obviously, with the new team changes, it's going to be very interesting which awards go to which player. But we do have to keep in mind that some of these players that did get traded to the Wizards and to Orlando and to Boston did end up playing this week. So they will be considered in the awards that I give out today. We're going to talk about the must improve from the Chicago Bulls. We're going to be talking about the 6th man of the week for the Chicago Bulls. And we're going to be talking about the player of the week for the Chicago Bulls. So let's start off with the most disappointing one. At the end of the day, we have had a disappointing week in terms of results. And to be fair, we probably should be talking about the must improve. And I'm going to give this to a player that is currently not on the Chicago Bulls at this point in time. It might be seen as an easy way out, but the way that if you see him play this week, he has not been great. And his name is Otto Porter Jr. I'm very happy to see that he got some game time with Orlando. I hope he does well. I hope he thrives. And I hope in the end he's an NBA player for a long time to come. But with the Chicago Bulls, Otto Porter Jr. was not terrific since his return. He had one good game against the Detroit Pistons, and outside of that, he was averaging 3 points, 4 points, and a few rebounds. And again, look at the Jazz game. I think he had 2 points in that game, 2 points and 6 rebounds. Then you look at the game against Cleveland, not the best, had 6 points. And then if you look at the game against the San Antonio Spurs, obviously he didn't play that game. So at the end of the day, it's probably not one that I think Otto Porter will remember. I don't think he's going to remember this week for the Chicago Bulls as his most memorable. He did get traded at the end of the day. I hope he does well in his new home in Orlando. And maybe Orlando might decide to re-sign him if he performs well. But whatever the case may be, those 2 games for the Chicago Bulls, I ultimately don't think was good enough. If I have to target someone that is already here, I would probably pick Kobe White, to be honest. But at the end of the day, I'm going to pick Otto Porter because I truly believe he was one of the worst players of the week for the Chicago Bulls by quite some margin as well, especially in that first game against the Jazz. Then we got the sixth man of the week, and this too will be given to a player that is not on the Chicago Bulls anymore. I'm going to give it to Wendell Carter Jr. It's between Wendell Carter and Thaddeus Young in my eyes. Two Chicago Bull players at the time that was performing well. Thaddeus Young had one game off of the bench today, or against the Spurs, and had 10 points and 9 assists. I don't think he had a terrific game, to be honest. I thought Wendell Carter, especially with the time against the Jazz and the Cavs, our bench was awful. But out of all the awful players that we had, Wendell Carter was the most consistent, getting around 8 points, 9 rebounds, stuff like that. The usual for Wendell Carter. He's doing the same thing in Orlando, played 20 minutes and got 8 points and 8 rebounds. He's a very consistent player in that retrospect in current day. Within the week, he's performing at a consistent level at that level. And as a bench player, there hasn't been too many people to step up to Wendell Carter's level. But he, once again, is no longer a Chicago Bull. So this is probably the last time we're going to mention him as a Chicago Bull in this video. And I think this is going to be a very nice present for him to go and walk off in, as he was the best bench player for the Chicago Bulls. He will definitely be experiencing a new home, a new environment, and hopefully he'll thrive there. But this is definitely a good sending out in my eyes for Wendell Carter, a player that I truly like and I think will be very successful in the NBA one day. He walked out of the Chicago Bulls as my personal sixth man of the week. So congratulations to Wendell Carter, and hopefully the Orlando Magic treats you right, and hopefully you end up having a very successful career. And the player of the week is someone I am going to give here. I think this is fairly simple player of the week. It is Zach LaVine. I don't think Zach LaVine had a terrific week. Don't get me wrong. I don't think the Bulls had a terrific week in terms of results. And Zach LaVine's a big part of that. But out of the very, very, very few good players that did play for the Chicago Bulls, Zach LaVine was definitely still one level above them. So whatever the case may be, Larry Marketing, Kobe White, Saturansky and Thaddeus Young. There were a bunch of players that were consistently good, but I think Zach LaVine was still a level above all those players, even in a weakened state, injury with his ankle against the Spurs, weren't terrific games against the Jazz and the Cavs. And in the end, that's exactly what happened. He's still the player of the week, but it's definitely not one that I think Zach LaVine or any player on the Chicago Bulls that would have won it would like to remember, because we went 0-3 this week. We didn't have a great week, and we lost to teams that was, especially in retrospect to the Cavs, a team we should have won. We should have beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, and we didn't. So in the end, it's not one to remember, but it's definitely one that's going to be announced there. So I guess congratulations to Zach LaVine. And let's see how the Chicago Bulls go in the future with a brand new team, a brand new environment, brand new mentality. And let's see who's going to win player of the week. Let's see who's going to be the new sixth man of the week. Let's see who's going to be the player that needs to improve the most. We're going to be finding out a lot, and a lot of new players are going to be coming in next week on the Chicago Bulls Weekly. We're going to be talking about those new players, and they're going to be players that are going to be mainstays for the current period of the Chicago Bulls. It's going to take some time to adjust, to get to know all these players, how they play, what I expect from them, and what obviously needs to happen for them to improve. These are things that are going to take time to adjust for me and for all the fans watching, but at the end of the day, we're going to be finding out just truly who's going to be here for the long term, who's going to make their name, who's going to be an impression, and who's going to end up failing. So we're going to have to wait and see for all of those things. But who are we going to face in order to determine these things? Well, we have, at this point in time, I believe, we're going to have 4 games in the upcoming week for the Chicago Bulls. The first game will be later today against the Golden State Warriors. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Stephen Curry is probable for this game, which means there is a slight chance that he will miss this game entirely. If he does miss this game, this is another golden opportunity that the Bulls have squandered before to go and get a victory against a weakened side. If Stephen Curry plays, then we're going to be versing the Golden State Warriors at semi-full strength, considering Klay Thompson's not going to be playing. Obviously, they're not at full strength, but for what their season has started with, they will be at full strength, according to my knowledge. So this is going to be an opportunity to verse the Golden State Warriors as best as they can be this season, if Stephen Curry plays. So it's going to be a test to see if we can beat a team like the Golden State Warriors with full strength, or it's going to be a golden opportunity to get a win that we probably are favorites to get if Stephen Curry doesn't play. It's one of the two situations that we're going to be battling, but either way, I want the Chicago Bulls to win this game. Then we've got the game against the Phoenix Suns. Not too long after that game, 2 days, I believe, rest. Then we've got the Phoenix Suns. So this game against the Phoenix Suns in the first time, we were up by 13 points or so in the third quarter. And then we had one of the worst fourth quarters of the entire season. We only scored around 9 points in that quarter. We could not score to save our lives, and the Phoenix Suns defense and offense really got the better of us, and we blew a 13-point lead to lose by nearly double digits, I believe. So this is another game that I think the Chicago Bulls should take a little bit personally, considering we were up by 13 and we blew another lead. I hope that we come into this ready to fight. Hope we come into this ready to ball out. And let's see what the Phoenix Suns has to offer. The Phoenix Suns are always teams that keep games close. They're not a team that's going to throw you out or demolish you most nights. So I really think this is an opportunity the Bulls can have to go and get a win over them. But again, it's another test. And with more chemistry, we shall wait and see how that goes. Then we got the Utah Jazz. Last time we versed the Utah Jazz, we got absolutely slaughtered. Again, it was only the previous week that we did verse the Utah Jazz. So I'm expecting a little bit of a bounce back from the Chicago Bulls. At the end of the day, you don't like to see your team get blown out. I hope this game would be significantly closer. But even if it isn't closer, I just want to see us compete. This is the best team in the NBA according to the record. So competing against a team like this and fighting and battling till the end, you can't ask for much more. Of course, we could walk away with a victory. Everybody's happy. We beat the best team in the NBA. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not sure even now if we're at that level. So we're going to have to wait and see. And then we definitely have the best team in the NBA according to paper. We've got the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I'm not sure who's going to be playing in this game or not. It seems like half the Nets players decide to take games off here or there. But if we're versing Nets at full strength, we're going to be versing Kyrie Irving. We're going to be versing James Harden. We're going to be versing Kevin Durant. We're going to be versing, obviously, DeAndre Jordan, a starting center, a capable center. He's probably not the best at this point. We're versing Joe Harris. We're versing Jeff Green. We're versing Blake Griffin. We're versing LaMarcus Aldridge. We're versing an extremely stacked team here. And we're going to struggle. But again, if it comes to offense versus offense, we will have a chance to win this game. The Nets are not terrific defensively, and neither are the Bulls. So in this retrospect, we definitely have a chance to win this game if it's offense versus offense, because we are a very good offensive team, and teams that are good on offense can most likely stick with the Brooklyn Nets. But defensively is going to be the key. We can end up having a defensive backbone in this game. We could definitely take it to the Brooklyn Nets. I expect that game to be a very fun one, and hopefully we don't get blown out. But we shall wait and see how that goes against the Brooklyn Nets. And that's the 4 games that we have. Again, you're looking at a very tough week for the Chicago Bulls. And I kind of feel sorry for all these new players that are coming in trying to gel into this team and get pushed straight to the fire with the Warriors, the Suns, the Jazz, and the Nets. These are some of the best teams in the NBA, and we're trying to get a new team to gel by versing the best of the best. But hopefully in the long run, when we verse these good teams, it requires us to gel faster. Then games against the Raptors, the Hawks, the Timberwolves, the Grizzlies, the Magic even, all these games upcoming for the Chicago Bulls, that team should be ready to go against all of them, and maybe we can pick up some very good victories there. We shall wait and see how that goes. We still have a long time to wait until we get to those games. But for now, we've got to stick it through with some of the tougher teams in the NBA. And let's see how many victories we can pull out this week. I'm expecting one. I hope we beat the Golden State Warriors. That's basically, I think, out of every team that we've talked about, Golden State is the weakest in terms of their record. So I hope the Bulls can come in and beat the Golden State Warriors and avenge us from that buzzer beater loss that we did have against them earlier in the season. And that's it for the Chicago Bulls weekly episode. A longer episode. I hope you guys enjoyed regardless. Thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you for the Chicago Bulls versus Golden State Warriors game reaction. Stephen Curry potentially playing in this game. The new look Chicago Bulls, a second game. I know we lost pretty badly in the first one, but every single game that comes, I'll be very excited because I know that this change is going to better us in the future. It may take time, it requires patience, and I'm on board for everything at that point in time. And we shall wait and see how we turn up against the Golden State Warriors. Take care and peace.